Welcome to today's YouTube video. Today we're talking about how we became missionaries. So this was a question from one of our lovely students here in Omaha. How do we discern that we were called to be missionaries with crew, and what is it like to be a missionary? Because that's a weird job.
And it's a good question.
So Jake, how did you become a missionary?
Yeah. Well, my story is I went to Bible college after high school, just because I really wanted to learn about the Bible. Um, I Through that experience, I wasn't necessarily excited about getting a job at a church or anything like that. So I decided to I ended up working at public schools, and through that job, I got to know students. So I worked with fourth grade students, but in an after school program that I was working at, I worked with six. Usually, I was working with sixth grade, um, and so through that experience, I really started seeing how just kind of broken their lives were. Um, there's a lot of complications just with poverty, with family issues, with all that stuff, and so uh, the more I got to know the students, the more I saw how desperate and really hopeless their situations were. They didn't have a lot of hope in the things that they did have hope in that were going to be disappointing eventually. It was either sports or grades and academics or friends, and they would have these moments in the after school program when they would open up, a little bit, and the more we talked, the more I realized I really want to share the gospel with these students, but as a public school employee, that is complicated, and you kind of have to work within a system that you can be honest if the kids ask, but if they're not asking the right questions, then my hands are kind of tied. And so that was when I realized that was kind of the beginning of a journey for me where I realized God was really putting on my heart to share the gospel with students, because that was a big part of my story when I was a student. Like I wanted more. I was probably depressed, and struggled with a lot of things in middle school and high school, and then when I heard the gospel, it was really good news.
Yeah.
It was really good news.
Hmm.
Even though I'd kind of heard it and I was kind of around church a lot as a kid, hearing it in a new way from other students when I was in middle school changed my life. And so that was kind of the beginning of I guess my calling to start into ministry.
You saw there was a problem.
Yes,
You couldn't address in your current situation.
yes, and God just kept putting it on my heart more and more to where I would go to training for education things and for things to use in the classroom, and I was already volunteering with Crew, and the whole time during the training, I'm thinking about how I can use the things that we're learning at the education training we're supposed to be using in the classroom. I was thinking about how I could use them at Crew. So once I kind of realized that, I was like, oh, like, yeah, my heart is really in doing ministry with Crew and in sharing the gospel with young people. And the more that was just kind of a seed, and then it just kept growing to where I was just more and more dissatisfied with my role at the school, and was more and more eager to jump into ministry. So that's kind of my story. Like, I think for me, the way I knew I was called was just that was what God was putting on my heart over and over and over again. It was like I did not want. I avoided it for a long time. I just volunteered a lot more. I even started as part-time staff, and then went into full-time staff because I was nervous. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I didn't want to fail. And so it was hard. It was a hard decision, but the more it's not that it was an easy road, but it was the more like that was like I wasn't going to be satisfied. The God was just changing my desires. I wasn't going to be satisfied until I was um, kind of doing what He was calling me to do. Um, so that's kind of my story. That's been my experience of how I kind of came into ministry. Um, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like for you?
Yeah, so for me, I grew up in a small town Bible preaching Christian church, and I knew about missionaries overseas that would go to some village or place where people don't know about Jesus and um, share their faith there. But I didn't know that there are missionaries in America trying to reach certain types of people. So I went to college at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, and I got involved with Crew there, the college ministry, and I was kind of exposed to these people that were missionaries to college students right here in America. Maybe they specialized in trying to reach athletes or international students or just the normal everyday student. But I realized, wow, that's just cool. Like you can live in Nebraska and still go and reach people with the gospel. So I kind of saw that was an option, but I still was very far off from my radar. I was had my mindset on making a lot of money. So I kind of jumped around different majors that would land me in a place where I'd be making six figures after I graduated. And that was kind of where I was thinking like, oh, I can make a lot of money, then give a lot of money. That'll kind of be my contribution to the cause. But then it was after my junior year of college when I was on a Cru summer mission in San Diego, California, that I felt kind of a general calling to try out missionary work. And I talked with some people about their experiences as missionaries with Cru, but I was kind of not sold on it until this one day. There was this Life Opportunities Day where we could hear about all these options with Cru or with other organizations. And this woman shared about what it meant to be on full-time staff with Cru. And me and my buddy Jonah were like, oh, let's see what God has to say about this. And so let's flop our Bibles open and point our finger and see what verse we land on. And so he landed on like some Old Testament law, like thou shalt not weave two types of clothing together. It didn't make any sense. But the one I landed on was in Daniel chapter 9.
That's your name.
That's my name.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
And the verse says, "O Daniel, you're greatly loved. Hear the vision and hear the calling." I was like, well, that's a little bit obvious. And so from that moment, I realized, dang, maybe this is more of a specific calling for me. And then over the next year, I joined part-time staff with Cru while I was still in college and worked 25 hours a week as a college student and as a missionary to college students. And then soon after, it was actually because of Jake at our Cru Fall Getaway, the fall of my senior year. You were sharing about the need in Omaha and how your boss was retiring and it's going to be just you for 9 campuses in the metro. And I was like, that's a terrible ratio. That's like, this guy can't do it by himself. And I was able to meet some students and kind of get to see the need a little bit and start praying about it. And that fall, I was trying to do a thing where I would fast every like second Thursday. So me and my discipler with Cru would fast together and see what the Lord showed us. Really sweet time. But one of those times I was walking across campus. I'd just taken a final and I was walking across campus. And at that point, I was thinking I would stay in Lincoln and try to reach college students there. But I heard like almost an audible voice from Jesus saying, Daniel, there's more believers on this campus right now than there were on the whole planet when I ascended into heaven. You can go, you can leave this place. Other people will reach it. And that was pretty crazy because I was like, up to then I'd kind of been possessive with that. Like, oh, if I don't reach this campus in Lincoln, no one will. But then I was kind of freed from that and showing how selfish that was. That kind of freed me up to think about something else, which was clearly Cru High in Omaha. So at that point, I just decided to apply and see where it went. And I had a few conversations with people that confirmed it. And now here we are.
Here we are.
So that's a bit of our stories about how we became missionaries with Crew High School, and hope that was informative and a little fun for you guys. If you want to talk to us more, feel free to hit us up.